I watched a lecture recently on YouTube by Sean Carroll, a well-regarded theoretical physicist, which he gave at Darwin College, Cambridge. The video is called Mysteries of Modern Physics by Sean Carroll. I encourage you to seek it out and watch it, so you can compare what I'm going to say here against it. In it, Sean talks about three things that modern physics is unable to explain. What I'm going to do here is solve all three of his mysteries of modern science. Not for the purposes of demonstrating how clever I am, but to shine a light on the question of why scientists think and behave as they do. Let's begin, shall we? The first mystery I'm going to solve is perhaps the easiest one of all, the arrow of time. Sean says that the laws of physics have no explanation for the arrow of time. There are no equations to account for it. He says that the phenomenon of entropy explains why the past is different from the future, because the universe began in a low entropy state and evolves to a high entropy state. And then he states that the profound mystery of the arrow of time is how exactly does entropy account for all of the asymmetries of time? This is perhaps the most obtuse line of thinking or questioning I have ever heard. Sean claims that we know why the past looks different to the future, and the answer is entropy. He states this boldly and flatly. From that apparent knowing, he arrives at his profound mystery of physics, which is, how exactly does entropy account for all of the asymmetries of time? My goodness, this is how physicists think. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go straight ahead and explain the really very simple and self-evident reason that time progresses in only one direction, from a single fixed past and outwards in the direction of many possible futures. Later on, we can come back and look at why a physicist might not be prepared to think this way, though that may be the biggest mystery of all. Okay, here we go. Hold on to your hats. This is not going to take very long. It is one of the mysteries of modern physics, according to Sean, but it is not going to take very long at all. Firstly, entropy does not account for the asymmetries of time. So the mystery, as Sean Carroll presents it, is a broken mystery from the start. Entropy is a phenomenon that occurs over time, whether it is increasing, decreasing, or remaining the same, just as all physical phenomena can be seen to occur over time. To suggest that the phenomenon of entropy accounts for the behavior or nature of time is like suggesting the phenomenon of clouds accounts for the nature of the sky. Time is a supremely simple thing to understand, despite the varied and esoteric ponderings of both physicists and fiction writers. So I will now explain it. When a physical event takes place, such as a grain of sand falling from a sandcastle, when it truly, actually has taken place, it remains true that that event took place. Yes? And it remains true for the rest of eternity that that event took place, because there is no possible reason for it ever to become untrue, spontaneously or otherwise. That is why we cannot go backwards in time, only forward. Yes, we can hypothetically pick up the grain of sand and return it to its former place on the sandcastle, but that does not make it untrue that the event of the grain of sand falling from the sandcastle happened. The grain of sand did fall. It did. Nothing can ever possibly make it so that it is suddenly no longer true that the grain of sand fell. This means that there is only ever one single possible past, regardless of how many possible futures there may be. That is why time only moves in one direction. When something has happened, it has happened. And from that point on, it will always have happened. Not having an equation to describe what has happened does not in any shape or form mean that what happened did not happen. And that really is that for one of Sean's so-called mysteries of modern physics. If it is not possible to write that truth into an equation that is acceptable to a physicist, I would suggest that it is not time's problem. Perhaps the reason there are no equations embedded in the laws of physics to account for the arrow of time is because the writing of equations is subject to time and not the other way round. Are any of you who are listening to this prepared to be as flabbergasted as I can be by the way in which modern physicists are prepared to think? The second mystery Sean tackles is the question of the emergence of space-time and gravity. If you have watched my video, Proof of Something, then you already know the explanation for gravity that I subscribe to, which is my own version of expansion theory. So I won't go into that here. But it's worthwhile my reiterating here that both time and space are non-physical qualities within the context of which physical phenomena take place. Space is a non-physical quality because it can be observed, measured, even while possessing no inherent mass or energy of its own. Time is a non-physical quality because it too can be observed, measured, while possessing no inherent mass or energy of its own. In other words, the mass and energy we find in space and over time is not space and it is not time. It is mass and it is energy. That is why we use entirely different instruments to detect and measure them. Yes? The emergence of space-time is not a mystery of modern science for the simple reason that the very concept of space-time as some kind of physical construct that can be bent, warped, or otherwise affected by the presence of physical phenomena is just not true. Neither space or time are emergent from anything other than truths being true. It seems to me that physicists are so readily prepared to think of non-physical qualities such as space and time as physical constructs because they simply do not know how to believe in any kind of phenomena at all that is not physical. But there may be other reasons. Okay, let's take a look at the first of Sean's mysteries of modern science, the great granddaddy of them all, quantum mechanics. Now, to make sense of what I'm going to say here, you really should listen to the nonsense that Sean describes in his lecture that understandably confuses the various physicists and physics enthusiasts that try to follow it. As I've pointed out in Proof of Something, the quantum scale of existence operates at a higher resolution and faster speed than the human scale and is, therefore, much more complex in its operation than the scale of classical mechanics that is reasonably understandable to humans. Sean makes the basic mistake of assuming that smaller interactions of the field of existence must be foundational to the larger interactions, and therefore the natural place to look for foundational understanding. In truth, it is not at all mysterious that the smaller, faster, and more complex energetic interactions become, the more mysterious their behavior will appear to us. So, for me, the unpredictable nature of quantum scale interactions is not at all a mystery. For me, it is not at all mysterious that those interactions appear as a fuzzy cloud of probabilities before they are looked at directly, that resolve into a precisely defined outcome when they are looked at directly, when they are measured. Of course, if you have a cat in a box, you won't know whether it is dead or alive until you open the box and take a look. For me, it is not at all mysterious that if your fuzzy set of possibilities all lie within a range of probability that still allows them to be useful, then they are useful. The outrageously broken thinking that startles me is that one would take the state of very tiny and fast and complex, unobserved energetic interactions as indicating that all possible states that could possibly be observed are actually in reality coexisting side by side in an inexplicable so-called superposition until they are looked at just because you haven't looked yet, just because you haven't successfully measured yet. This is the mystery that fully grown scientists are so prepared to entertain and actively promote such notions, and even then, after they have done that, hold their hands up and admit they still don't understand what's happening. There is a massive difference between saying that you don't understand what is happening because it is just too small, fast, and complex for you to make sense of, and saying that you don't understand what is happening because, as far as you are concerned, a cat in a box is existing in all of the possible states that that cat could possibly be existing in until you open the lid and look at it. And gosh, isn't existence mysterious and worthy of large grants for the endless study of it? The mystery is not quantum mechanics. The mystery is physicists. The mystery is human thinking. Time doesn't not go backwards because entropy occurs forwards in time. Entropy occurs forwards in time because everything that occurs forwards in time. Space and time are not physical constructs. Physical constructs simply occur in space and over time. Quantum mechanics does not result in unnecessary and impossible parallel realities, things that are just too small and fast and complex to predict with precision are just too small, fast and complex to predict with precision. None of this is mysterious except to a scientist who has been confused by scientists who came before them, who were confused by scientists who came before them, and so on and so on. And there is money to be made and careers to be had for all of the theoretical scientists that are willing to play the game, willing to research and study nonsense that is endless and therefore endlessly lucrative. So what can we think of these scientists and the audiences that applaud them and the commenters under their videos that thank them? Are they all consciously lying, unconsciously lying, or simply believing on good faith what their peers claim to understand with confident authority? Well, it's a big old fuzzy cloud of probability that is too complex for me to measure. But probably a big fuzzy mix of all three and more besides, I would guess. My dear friends, this is all so very, very awful. Our mental condition as the human collective is in a truly, truly awful state, with our addictions to consensus reality, money, and thoroughly broken thinking. It just about breaks my heart. Does Sean's lecture really have to be representative of what we see as the mysteries of existence, of life? To have mystery is a wonderful thing. I'm a great fan of mystery. But I'm also a great fan of our questions themselves at least making some small amount of sense. To my mind, Sean's explanation of how modern physics thinks and what modern physics believes is worthy of a public outrage. But I have to say, I'm starting to become somewhat numbed by my inability to find people who get the significance of these things that I find so excruciatingly significant. What is it precisely that I'm suggesting we could possibly do about this? What is it that I suggest you do with it? Not another protest in the street, that's for sure. Just care for yourself about being lucid. It's not about being intelligent. I don't need to be uncommonly intelligent to understand that once a thing has happened, it has happened. You don't need to be some kind of clever person to be lucid. You just need to be clear and honest with yourself about what does and does not make sense to you. Just care about being lucid for yourself, for your children, for your friends, and care about what you and your children are learning. Let the rich be rich. Let the confused be confused. Care about yourself and the people who are close to you. The arrow of time will continue on. One day, whether it be sooner or later, we will emerge from this fuzzy probability cloud of complexity, confusion, and uncertainty, and observe the truth with precision and clarity.